Helsinki is my home. That sentence sounds insane to me when I think about my life. Like seriously, Finland? Where is that? I was barely aware of its existence, yet here I am now, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. I have my routines, I have my home, I have a vision. I'm happy. But if I'm honest with you, I didn't always feel so positive about living here. There was a time when everything felt so foreign and confusing. I was constantly lost, constantly feeling isolated. I was lonely. If that wasn't enough, homesickness was a pit in my stomach. I missed my friends and family. I had to contend with the strangeness of the culture and its people. Living in a new culture might not feel very difficult. I'm sure there's some truth to that if you go to a place similar to the one you left. However, when it's entirely new, it can feel very disorientating. You feel like a child who doesn't know the most basic things. I remember being in a grocery store when I first arrived here to buy milk. And the only problem is, I didn't know which one was the bloody milk. It made me feel so stupid. Not to mention, it can feel more difficult than usual to approach people when you're in a new environment. I'm naturally more extroverted, and it was draining in the beginning, even for me. It had a lot more to do with thoughts running through my head, but I didn't know that yet. Those were some dark days. But me being me meant that I tried very hard to see the bright side of things. Getting used to a physical environment is pretty straightforward. You spend time learning your surroundings and you should be good to go. The emotional mental plane in a new country, on the other hand, is a complex weaving web. Submerging yourself in a culture is way more challenging when the only thought running through your head is, these people are weird. That thought resonated through me very often. I would say that my biggest shock was how reserved people were here. Yes, in the early days, I shudder to admit that I committed the sin of trying to speak to people on the bus. It makes me cringe just saying it out loud. Think about this. I purposely sat next to a lady, plastered a smile on my face, and said, "Hi, how are you today?" I need to ask you guys a little favor. If you are enjoying this video, consider liking and subscribing. And if you do like this more cinematic way of telling my stories, I will gauge my ability to continue doing them depending on if you guys really like this video or not. If you don't, that's all right. That's all right. Then I know I'll do other stuff. But otherwise, I genuinely appreciate this. Thank you. How times have changed. My story is one of stepping out into the unknown world of Northern Europe, where people are as different to me as different can be. I'm originally from South Africa, where the people are incredibly different, way more outgoing and vibrant in a way. Seeing a lack of that in folk on this side of the world rattled me a little. Then my eyes began to open and I understood the first bit of truth. Moving to a new country and expecting the same life you left will leave you feeling disappointed. So the first thing I had to do is let go of my old life and focus on building my new one. Practically, it meant not calling the place I left home anymore. That might sound extreme or like a betrayal, but in my opinion, it's not, and I didn't betray anyone. I just settled my heart and decided to not live in the past anymore. It was only from that point that I started to truly enjoy my life here. I began to pay closer attention to the things I enjoyed. Then I would compare them to the things I didn't enjoy. Most of the time, the pros outweighed the cons. An example would be, yes, it gets really cold and dark during wintertime. Yes, it's rough at times. Yes, it can feel draining. On the flip side, only one thing has been stolen from me, sort of, because it wasn't actually mine in the 5 years that I've been here. That was a bicycle, which is actually quite common here. That's a story for another time. Just like everything else in life, I guess, it took a little bit of time for me to find my groove, to be comfortable with the environment I was in. And as time went on, it became strange because those things that I used to view in a strange way, or the things that I was very critical towards, turns out I adopted those things and I genuinely enjoy them now. Like, take this whole idea of speaking to people in public transport. Whereas where I'm from, it's quite normal to be able to just talk and be vibrant and all that sort of stuff. And I still genuinely enjoy it. But I just find myself being very comfortable with this idea that, if I'm sitting and I'm en route somewhere, I'm not necessarily interested in having long conversations with people. And people on the outside might look at this and say that, oh, it's incredibly sad. Look at how introverted these people are. When in truth, it is basically a manifestation of an inner belief that you are not trying to impose yourself on other people, that you want the peace that you are trying to give out. Of course, you can still go out and converse with people, and people are in general quite polite, and that's not an issue. But it's just really funny to me that something that was strange is now normal. Finland is a majority white country, as one would expect it to be, just like Namibia is a majority black country. Coming from a heavily racially divided place myself, I expected some kind of racial prejudice to be aimed my way. But in my head, it was another thing I would place on the scale. If the burden of living here was heavier than the gift of living here, I would get out. Simple as that. But to my delighted surprise, no one gave a shit. That brought me more insight into the type of people I was adopting as my neighbors. They simply wanted to live their own lives without being caught up in someone else's without choosing to. Slowly but surely, I began to fall in love with this place. It's not the most hustling and bustling of cities out there. You won't find it on the news very often, but it's calm, quiet, and peaceful. There are places you can go if you want an extra dose of spice. Alternatively, you can live life in relative peace, knowing that most people want to do the same thing. So yes, Helsinki is my home, and this somewhat obscure country to many across the planet is my country.